Every universe carries a quiet reflection of itself. For every particle that drifts through space, there exists a shadow twin, equal in form, opposite in nature, waiting silently in the background of reality. Antimatter is not loud or explosive by itself. It is a mirror held gently against the fabric of existence, revealing how delicate the balance of everything truly is. Welcome to AstraFlow. Here, science drifts like starlight, and curiosity becomes calm. Tonight, let your thoughts slow down, your breathing find its rhythm, and your mind float through wonder. Before we begin, I'd love to know where you're listening from. Are you lying in bed beneath the soft glow of city lights, or resting somewhere quieter, where the night sky feels close enough to touch? Perhaps you're listening through headphones, while the world outside fades into a distant hush. Tell me in the comments. It's always peaceful to imagine the AstraFlow community scattered across the world, drifting together beneath the same sky. And if this calm journey brings you peace, you can gently support AstraFlow by liking this video or subscribing. It helps this little corner of the cosmos keep glowing, quietly and steadily, night after night. Now, allow your body to soften. Let your shoulders sink downward. Notice the gentle rise and fall of your breath, like a slow tide moving across a moonlit shore. There is nowhere else you need to be, nothing you need to solve, just this moment unfolding at its own pace. Tonight's journey takes us into one of the universe's most subtle stories. Not a tale of massive explosions or blazing stars, but a quieter mystery. Hidden, patient, and deeply elegant. Antimatter is often imagined as dangerous or destructive, yet its true nature is far more delicate. It exists as a balance point, a reminder that reality itself rests on the smallest of differences. Long ago, in the early moments of the universe, matter and antimatter were born together, like two notes struck at the same time. Had they been perfectly equal, everything might have dissolved back into light, leaving no stars, no planets, no breath moving through your chest right now. And yet something tipped the scale, just enough for existence to remain. As we drift deeper into this story, we won't rush toward answers. We will move slowly, listening to what science has learned and to what mystery still hums softly beneath it. This is not a journey to stay awake for, it is a journey to rest inside. Now, let's begin tonight's voyage into the quiet story of the hidden story of antimatter, a calm exploration. What does it mean for the universe to carry an opposite within itself? Why would reality need a mirror, a counterweight, a presence that almost erases everything we know? As you breathe slowly, these questions don't ask for answers. They simply invite you to rest beside them, like smooth stones warmed by the sun. From the outside, the universe appears calm and continuous. Stars burn steadily. Galaxies drift in slow spirals. Time moves forward with gentle persistence. Yet beneath this quiet surface lies a deeper structure, one built not only on what exists, but on what could just as easily have undone it. Antimatter is one of those ideas that sounds dramatic, as if it belongs only to distant laboratories or science fiction. But at its heart, it is a question about balance. For every particle of matter that forms the world around you, there exists an opposite, identical in mass, mirrored in charge, and perfectly capable of cancelling it away. Why would the universe create such pairs at all? Why not choose simplicity, a single kind of substance drifting through space? The presence of antimatter suggests something deeper, that reality is not built from singular things, but from relationships, from tension, from symmetry that is almost but never quite complete. You can imagine it like breathing. An inhale without an exhale would not sustain you. Expansion needs contraction. Movement needs stillness. In the same way, matter seems to need its opposite, even if that opposite now lingers mostly out of sight. As you lie here listening, notice how your own body carries balance without effort. Heartbeat and pause. light sleep and deeper rest, awareness and drifting. You are not one constant state, but a gentle oscillation between many. In physics, this idea appears again and again. Opposites define each other, positive and negative, forward and backward, existence and absence. Antimatter fits quietly into this pattern, not as a threat, but as a reminder that the universe was never meant to be one-sided. There is also a softer question hidden here. If everything could have vanished in a perfect cancellation, why didn't it? Why are you here, breathing, listening, present in this moment? Somewhere in the earliest flicker of time, the universe chose imbalance. Not chaos, just a slight preference, enough to allow stars to form and thoughts to rise and fade. You don't need to hold on to these questions. Let them float past like thin clouds crossing the moon. Curiosity does not need tension. Wonder does not require effort. Tonight, these questions are simply companions walking beside you as the mind begins to loosen its grip. In the next moments of our journey, we'll move gently from philosophy into story, from wondering why opposites exist to discovering how humans first noticed this quiet mirror of reality. For now, rest in the thought that the universe is balanced not by perfection, but by gentle difference. Antimatter sounds like a concept born from imagination, something dramatic and distant. Yet its true story begins quietly, almost shyly, within the language of science. At its core, antimatter is not exotic in structure. It does not bend the rules of reality. It follows them perfectly, only with signs gently reversed. Where matter carries a positive charge, antimatter carries a negative one. Where matter spins one way, antimatter spins the other. In every measurable sense, it is matter's reflection, calm and precise. To understand antimatter, you don't need equations or machines. You can begin with something simpler. Imagine holding a candle in a dark room. The flame rises upward, steady and warm. Now imagine its reflection in a mirror. The reflected flame looks real, detailed, complete, yet it cannot warm your hands. Antimatter is like that reflection made physical. It exists fully, obeys the same laws, yet behaves as an opposite presence woven into the same fabric of the universe. In the early days of physics, scientists did not set out to find antimatter. They were searching for consistency, for balance in their equations. And there, quietly written between symbols, antimatter appeared. Not as a surprise, but as a necessity. The math suggested that for every particle of matter, there must be another, equal and opposite, waiting patiently in the background. Reality, it seemed, refused to be incomplete. Antimatter does not roam freely around us because it is fragile in our world. When it meets ordinary matter, both disappear into energy, a brief release of light before silence returns. This is not destruction in the human sense. Nothing is lost. Everything is transformed. Matter and antimatter do not fight. They complete each other, closing a loop that began at the birth of time. As you listen, notice how gentle this idea really is. Antimatter is not chaos hidden in the universe. It is symmetry expressed softly. It is the universe checking its own reflection, confirming its shape, and although antimatter is rare today, its presence in the past shaped everything that followed. Without it, matter itself would have no meaning. Without the possibility of cancellation, existence would lack contrast, like music with only one note. There is comfort in this thought. Even the most complex ideas in science often reduce to simple patterns: balance, reflection, rhythm. Antimatter reminds us that the universe does not rush forward blindly. It considers both sides. It allows for stillness as much as motion, presence as much as absence. As your breathing slows, you might feel how naturally your own thoughts begin to soften. Understanding is no longer the goal. Familiarity is enough. In the next part of our journey, we will drift back in time to the moment when antimatter first revealed itself to human eyes, not through explosions or spectacle, but through quiet observation and patience. For now, rest in the idea that even the strangest parts of the universe arise from calm symmetry, unfolding without urgency. The story of antimatter did not begin with a sudden flash or a loud announcement. It arrived quietly, almost unnoticed, through careful watching. In the early 20th century, physicists were learning how to see the invisible. They built devices called cloud chambers, sealed spaces filled with vapour, where tiny particles left faint trails as they passed through. These trails were delicate like breath on cold glass, appearing for a moment before fading away. Scientists would sit and observe, patient and still, watching these fleeting lines curve gently through the mist. Each curve told a story. The direction of the bend revealed a particle's charge. Its thickness hinted at its energy. Most of what they saw matched expectations. Matter behaved as matter should. But then, among the familiar paths, something strange appeared. A particle that curved the wrong way, same mass, same speed, same shape, yet opposite in charge. At first, there was hesitation. Science moves slowly when something unexpected appears. Instruments are questioned, assumptions are checked. But the trails returned again and again, consistent and calm. What they were seeing was not an error. It was a mirror. The first confirmed glimpse of antimatter had arrived not with drama but with quiet certainty. This discovery mattered because it revealed something profound. Antimatter was not invented by theory alone. It was not a mathematical trick. It was physically present, drifting through the universe, touching instruments, leaving marks that human eyes could follow. Reality itself had been carrying a hidden reflection all along. There is something soothing about this moment in scientific history. No race, no urgency, just observation, just listening. The universe spoke softly, and someone happened to be paying attention. It reminds us that discovery does not always belong to the loudest moment. Often, it belongs to those who wait. As you rest, imagine that chamber filled with mist, suspended in stillness. A particle passes through, unseen, yet its path becomes visible for a heartbeat. Then it fades. This is how much of reality exists, briefly revealed, easily missed, yet deeply meaningful. Antimatter's discovery did not immediately change the world. There were no instant applications, no machines built overnight. Instead, it settled gently into understanding, expanding the sense of what the universe allows. It told scientists that symmetry was not an idea imposed on nature. It was something nature already practiced. There is comfort here too. Even the universe's strangest features reveal themselves calmly when conditions are right. Nothing needs to be forced. Nothing needs to be rushed. Understanding unfolds at its own pace, much like sleep itself. In the next part of our journey, we will move closer to the nature of these mirrored particles, exploring how matter and antimatter relate and why their relationship is so precise. For now, let the image of those quiet vapor trails drift through your mind, fading gently, leaving behind the sense that the universe has always been speaking softly to those willing to listen. Once antimatter revealed itself, the universe felt suddenly more symmetrical, as if a hidden fold in reality had been gently unfolded. Scientists began to understand that antimatter was not a single strange substance, but a pattern repeated everywhere. For every particle that makes up matter, there exists a partner, not distorted, not incomplete, but perfectly mirrored. An electron, small and restless, carries a negative charge and drifts around atomic nuclei. Its counterpart, the positron, is identical in mass and behaviour, yet carries a positive charge. Protons have antiprotons. Neutrons have antineutrons. Even the most fleeting particles follow this rule. It is as though the universe insists on balance. creating pairs as naturally as day follows night. This reflection is not symbolic, it is exact. If matter were a melody, antimatter would be the same notes played in reverse. Nothing added, nothing missing, only orientation changed, and yet this small reversal changes everything. When matter and antimatter meet, their similarities do not merge. Instead, they dissolve together, releasing energy and leaving no trace of either behind. There is something deeply peaceful in this idea. The universe allows opposites to exist fully, but it does not let them linger together for long. Their union is brief and complete, like two waves meeting and flattening into still water. What remains is light, free and unbound, carrying the memory of what once was. As you lie listening, notice how naturally your mind understands this. You have experienced reflections before, in water, in mirrors, in moments when you recognize yourself in another person. Antimatter feels unfamiliar only because we rarely encounter it directly. In its logic, it is surprisingly gentle. This precision tells us something important. The universe is not careless. It does not create opposites loosely. Every detail matches, every property aligns. Even at the smallest scales, reality behaves with patience and consistency. This is why scientists trust these patterns. They repeat, they endure, they hold. Antimatter, then, is not chaos waiting to happen. It is order expressed in reverse. It is a reminder that existence includes its own echo, and that echo shaped the earliest moments of the cosmos, deciding what could remain and what would fade away. As your breathing slows further, let this idea settle. Balance does not require struggle. Reflection does not require conflict. The universe holds both sides quietly, allowing them to appear, interact, and release. In the next part, we will drift closer to the moment when matter and antimatter meet. Not with fear, but with curiosity, exploring what truly happens when opposites touch. For now, rest in the knowledge that even the smallest particles carry harmony within them, reflected softly across the fabric of space. When matter and antimatter encounter one another, the moment is brief and complete. There is no struggle, no hesitation. They simply transform. In an instant, both vanish, replaced by a release of energy that moves outward as light. Physicists call this annihilation, but the word is heavier than the reality. Nothing is destroyed. Everything changes form, returning to the universal language of energy. This transformation follows a simple rule. Matter carries mass. Mass carries energy. When opposites meet, that stored energy is set free. The universe does not waste what it has created. It recycles, patiently and precisely. What once existed as particles becomes light that travels outward, joining the endless flow that fills space. There is a quiet elegance in this process. No debris, no remnants, just completion. Like two opposing notes resolving into silence, matter and antimatter end not with noise, but with clarity. The result is not absence, it is illumination. As you listen, imagine two soft waves moving toward each other across a still lake. When they meet, they do not crash. They pass through and flatten, leaving the surface calm again. Annihilation is like that. A return to stillness carrying the memory of motion within it. This idea can feel strangely comforting. Even the most extreme interactions in the universe resolve peacefully. There is no anger in physics, no intention, only transformation. Opposites meet, energy flows, and the universe continues its slow unfolding. Antimatter helps us understand how deeply connected everything is. Matter is not permanent, neither is antimatter. What lasts is the flow between forms. Light becomes matter, matter becomes light. Nothing is fixed. Everything participates in the same cycle. As your thoughts drift, you might notice how this mirrors your own experience. Thoughts arise, feelings form, then gently they fade. They are not destroyed. They simply change shape, becoming memory, becoming silence, becoming rest. In the early universe, matter and antimatter met constantly. Space was dense and hot, filled with motion. Countless transformations occurred over and over, shaping the future without awareness. What remained after this era was not predetermined. It was the result of countless quiet meetings, each releasing light, each thinning the sea of particles. We will explore that time soon. For now, let yourself rest in the simplicity of this exchange. Opposites meet, energy flows, stillness returns. The universe breathes just as you do, without effort or urgency. When matter and antimatter dissolve into energy, what remains is light. Not the light of lamps or stars alone, but light as a fundamental expression of change. Photons move outward at the universe's maximum pace, carrying with them no mass, no weight, only motion and information. In this way, annihilation does not end a story. It translates it into a quieter language. Light is how the universe remembers. It carries traces of events long finished, crossing vast distances without aging. When matter and antimatter meet, their history is not erased. It is released, spread thinly across space, becoming part of the cosmic background hum. This is why physicists listen to light so carefully. It speaks softly, but it speaks truthfully. There is a gentleness here that is easy to miss. The word disappearance suggests loss, yet what occurs is closer to diffusion. Like ink dropped into water, the energy spreads, becoming less concentrated, more shared. Nothing clings to its previous shape. Everything relaxes into motion. The universe seems to prefer this easing, this untying of knots, as you rest. Consider how often light accompanies calm endings. Sunset dissolves the day into colour. A candle's flame dims and leaves warmth behind. Even sleep arrives not as a switch, but as a slow fading of awareness. In physics, too, endings glow briefly before settling into stillness. Antimatter helps us see light not only as illumination, but as resolution. When opposites meet, the universe chooses clarity over complexity. It releases what was bound and allows it to travel freely. This pattern repeats at every scale, from particles to thoughts. Tension gives way to flow. In the early cosmos, this process happened everywhere. Space was crowded, hot, alive with encounters. Light flooded outward continuously, filling the universe with energy that would later cool, stretch, and soften. Some of that ancient light still surrounds you now. Thinned by time, barely warmer than absolute stillness, yet present all the same. This connection can feel intimate. The light that once emerged from matter and antimatter meeting now brushes past your body, unnoticed as you lie here breathing. The universe does not separate past from present as sharply as we do. Everything overlaps, gently. Allow this idea to settle without effort. You do not need to hold it. Let it drift like a glow behind closed eyes. In the next part of our journey, we will touch the quiet symmetry that mathematics revealed, and how equations themselves whispered the existence of antimatter before it was ever seen. For now, rest in the softness of light, born from balance, travelling endlessly, asking nothing in return. Long before antimatter was ever seen, it was felt quietly in mathematics. Equations, when written carefully, have a way of revealing what reality requires, even before instruments can confirm it. In the early 20th century, physicists were shaping equations to describe particles moving near the speed of light. The math was elegant, balanced, and calm. Yet hidden within those symbols was a subtle insistence. For the equations to remain whole, something opposite had to exist. This was not imagination. It was symmetry speaking. The equations refused to describe a universe with only one side. They offered two solutions, equal in structure, opposite in sign. One matched known matter. The other had no physical name at the time. It was simply there, waiting, like a shadow implied by light. There is something deeply soothing about this moment in science. Antimatter was not forced into theory to make it exciting. It appeared because balance demanded it. Mathematics, in its quiet honesty, would not allow an incomplete universe. This is one of the gentlest ways knowledge arrives, not through surprise, but through necessity. As you listen, you might notice how this mirrors everyday understanding. When something feels unfinished, the mind senses it immediately. A melody wants resolution. A breath wants release. Equations behave the same way. They seek harmony. They close their loops. Antimatter emerged as the universe's way of keeping its internal rhythm steady. When experiments later confirmed these predictions, it did not feel like triumph. It felt like recognition. As if reality nodded softly and said, yes, that is how it has always been. Matter was never alone. It always carried its reflection, even if it took time for humans to notice. This reminds us that science is not only about discovery, it is about listening carefully enough to hear what is already present. Antimatter teaches patience. It shows that truth does not rush forward. It waits for the right conditions, the right tools, the right calm attention. Let this idea rest gently in your mind. The universe is not chaotic beneath the surface. It is structured, balanced, and deeply consistent. Even its mysteries arise from order. As your breathing slows, feel how understanding no longer needs effort. It simply aligns. In the next part of our journey, we will drift back to the earliest moments of the cosmos, when matter and antimatter were born together in the universe's first breath. For now, allow the quiet elegance of symmetry to carry you, like a steady current, deeper into rest. At the very beginning, the universe was not spacious or silent. It was dense, bright, and impossibly warm, a place where distance had little meaning and everything existed close together. In this first breath of time, matter and antimatter emerged side by side, born from the same conditions, shaped by the same laws. There was no preference then, no hierarchy, just symmetry unfolding naturally. In those early moments, particles appeared and vanished continuously. Matter met antimatter everywhere, transforming into light, then forming again as energy condensed. Creation and release happened in the same motion, like a tide that rises and falls without pause. The universe was not building yet. It was breathing, expanding, testing its own balance. This era was brief but decisive, as space stretched and cooled. Encounters between matter and antimatter became less frequent. Particles began to survive a little longer between meetings. It was during this gentle slowing that something subtle occurred. For reasons still not fully understood, matter gained a slight advantage. Not much, just enough. That tiny difference changed everything. For every billion particles of antimatter, there were 1,000,000,001 particles of matter. When the great wave of annihilation passed, almost everything vanished into light. What remained was that small excess. Those survivors became the seeds of all structure, galaxies, stars, planets, and eventually life. It is difficult to overstate how fragile this outcome was. If the balance had tipped the other way, antimatter might have dominated. If it had been perfectly equal, nothing solid would remain at all. The universe would be filled only with light, smooth and silent, with no places for complexity to settle. As you rest, let this thought arrive gently. Your existence depends on an imbalance so small it feels almost accidental, yet here you are, listening, breathing, aware. The universe did not guarantee this moment, it allowed it. There is something deeply calming about that. Existence is not forced, it is permitted. It arises from near cancellation, from a choice that was barely a choice at all. This gives the universe a softness, a humility. Nothing here is loud or absolute. Everything is the result of fine margins. In the next part of our journey, we will linger with this mystery, exploring why matter gained that slight edge and why the universe seems to favour imperfection over perfect symmetry. For now, let your thoughts drift back to that first breath, when everything was possible and almost nothing remained. For a brief moment, the universe stood on the edge of perfect balance. Matter and antimatter existed in nearly equal measure, mirroring each other with exquisite precision. From a distance, it would have looked complete, symmetrical, almost finished, and yet perfection did not remain. Somewhere within that early calm, the balance leaned just slightly toward matter. This is one of the quietest mysteries in all of science. There was no dramatic rupture, no sudden event that announced the change. The shift was small enough to be missed, gentle enough to hide within equations and probabilities, but it mattered more than almost anything else that followed, because perfection, it turns out, leaves no room for structure. Only imbalance can build. Physicists call this broken symmetry. It sounds harsh, but the reality is soft. Nature did not shatter its mirror. It merely allowed one side to linger a little longer than the other. A subtle preference emerged, like a coin landing heads one extra time after countless perfect flips. The universe did not demand equality. It accepted difference. As you lie here, breathing slowly, you may notice how familiar this pattern feels. Perfect stillness is rare. Even in rest, the body shifts slightly. The mind wanders, then returns. Balance is not a fixed point. It is a motion, a gentle sway. The universe behaves the same way. If matter and antimatter had remained perfectly matched, every particle would have met its opposite and dissolved back into light. The cosmos would be smooth, radiant, and empty. Beautiful, perhaps, but silent. No atoms, no chemistry, no complexity. The fact that you are listening now means that perfection quietly stepped aside. Scientists continue to search for the reason. Why did matter gain that small advantage? Was it a property hidden deep within particles themselves, or a consequence of the universe's expansion? The answers are still unfolding, and there is peace in that. Some questions are meant to remain open for a while, like windows letting night air drift through. What matters most is not the solution, but the outcome. Because of this gentle imbalance, matter gathered, particles cooled, atoms formed, gravity began its slow work. The universe transitioned from breathing to building, from possibility to structure. As your awareness softens, let this idea settle without analysis. The universe did not need to be perfect to be meaningful. It needed room to grow. In the next part of our journey, we will explore how that tiny excess of matter became everything we see, turning difference into stars, worlds, and quiet moments like this one. That tiny excess of matter was almost nothing, yet it carried infinite consequence. After the great era of annihilation passed, when matter and antimatter had met and released their light, what remained was not abundance, but residue, a thin scattering of matter left behind like dust after a wave recedes. This was enough. It was always enough. From that small remainder, the universe began to change its pace. Expansion continued, but now there were particles that could linger. Protons and electrons found each other and stayed together. Atoms formed, simple at first, mostly hydrogen and helium, drifting quietly through a cooling cosmos. Space, once crowded and hot, began to open, creating room for patience. Gravity entered the story slowly. It did not rush or announce itself. It simply invited matter to gather. Clouds thickened. Regions became slightly denser than others. Over vast spans of time, these gentle imbalances grew. What began as a barely measurable excess turned into stars igniting in darkness, galaxies assembling their graceful spirals, and light finding places to be born again. All of this traces back to that small difference. Not a grand decision, but a quiet allowance. The universe did not choose complexity boldly. It drifted into it, guided by imbalance so slight it feels almost tender. There is something comforting in knowing that existence itself is not the result of force, but of subtle permission. As you rest, you might sense how this echoes within your own life. So much of what shapes you comes from small moments. A pause, a choice barely noticed, a change in direction that felt insignificant at the time. Yet these small differences accumulate, shaping paths that could never have been predicted from the beginning. Antimatter reminds us that creation does not require dominance. Matter did not overwhelm its opposite. It simply outlasted it by the smallest margin. Survival, in this sense, was not victory. It was continuity. The universe leaned just enough to let something remain. This perspective softens the idea of existence. Nothing here is guaranteed. Nothing is absolute. Everything depends on balance that never fully settles. And perhaps that is why the universe feels alive, always adjusting, always flowing, never rigid. As your breathing deepens, let this understanding relax inside you. You do not need to hold the universe steady. It has always found its own way through small differences and gentle shifts. In the next part of our journey, we will reflect on how close reality came to never forming at all, and how that fragility adds a quiet beauty to being here now. When you look at the night sky, it feels solid and enduring, as if it has always been there and always will be. Stars seem permanent, galaxies feel ancient and assured. Yet beneath this appearance lies an astonishing fragility. The universe came remarkably close to leaving nothing behind at all. Existence balanced on a margin so thin it is almost difficult to imagine. If matter and antimatter had been perfectly equal, every particle would have found its opposite. Each meeting would have released light, and then silence would have followed. No atoms would have formed, no structures would have gathered. Space would be smooth, luminous and empty, filled only with radiation slowly cooling as the universe expanded. A beautiful stillness perhaps, but one without observers, without memory, without breath. That this did not happen feels almost like an accident, yet it was lawful, precise, and consistent. The universe followed its rules faithfully, and those rules allowed for a slight imbalance. From that allowance, everything else emerged. Fragility, then, is not weakness. It is opportunity. It is the space where outcomes are not predetermined. As you listen, notice how this idea softens the way existence feels. You're not here because the universe was strong or forceful. You are here because it was permissive. It allowed something small to remain, and that small remainder was patient enough to become everything. There is comfort in this gentleness. Nothing had to fight to exist. Matter did not conquer antimatter. It simply lingered. It stayed when its opposite faded into light. This is not a story of domination, but of persistence, of presence maintained quietly over time. You may feel this in your own body as you rest. Life does not demand constant effort. Much of it happens while you're not paying attention. Cells repair themselves. Breath finds its rhythm. Consciousness drifts in and out. Fragility does not interrupt these processes. It supports them. It keeps them flexible. Antimatter teaches us that the universe is not built on absolutes. It is built on probabilities, on balances that sway gently rather than lock into place. This makes reality responsive, capable of change, capable of growth. A perfectly balanced universe would be frozen. An imperfect one can unfold. Let this thought ease any tension you're holding. You do not need to be unbreakable to belong here. Neither does the universe. Everything that exists does so because it is allowed to be slightly unfinished, slightly uneven, slightly open to possibility. In the next part of our journey, we will turn our attention toward time itself, exploring how antimatter invites questions about direction, flow, and the quiet arrow that carries moments from past to future. For now, rest in the understanding that fragility is not something to fear. It is the reason there is anything at all. Time feels like the most familiar thing in the world. It moves forward. It carries moments away. It never seems to pause or turn back. And yet, when scientists look closely at the laws of physics, time becomes strangely quiet. Most equations do not care which direction time flows. They work just as well forward as backward, like a river that could in theory run uphill. Antimatter gently enters this question. In its mirrored properties, some physicists wondered whether antimatter might experience time differently, as if its internal clock pointed the other way, not racing backward through days and nights, but carrying a subtle reversal in its behaviour, hidden deep within the mathematics. This idea is still being explored, still unfolding, and it remains calm and unresolved. There is no need to grasp the details. What matters is the feeling of the question itself. Time, which feels so solid in daily life, may not be as rigid as it seems. It may be a direction that emerges from imbalance, just like matter itself. When matter slightly outweighed antimatter, processes began to prefer one direction over another, cause before effect, memory after experience, past before future. As you lie here listening, you may notice how time already loosens its grip at night. Minutes stretch, thoughts blur, the sense of sequence softens. Sleep does not move forward the way daytime does, it drifts. In this way, your own experience echoes the universe's deeper uncertainty about time. Antimatter reminds us that direction is not guaranteed. It emerges from conditions, from imbalance, from subtle preferences that become habits over vast spans. The arrow of time may not be fundamental, it may be a consequence, born from the same tiny difference that allowed matter to remain. This idea can feel soothing rather than unsettling. If time is not absolute, then neither is urgency. The universe is not rushing anywhere. It is unfolding. And so are you. Each moment arrives, rests briefly, then dissolves into the next, without strain. Scientists continue to test these ideas with care, observing how particles decay, how symmetry behaves, how nature gently favours one outcome over another. There is no rush for answers. Time itself seems patient with the question. As your awareness softens further, allow your sense of time to loosen as well. You do not need to track seconds. You do not need to remember what comes next. Let moments blend together like waves smoothing the shore. In the next part of our journey, we will explore symmetry itself, and how the universe quietly breaks its mirrors to allow variety and life to appear. For now, rest in the feeling that time, like everything else, is part of the same gentle flow. Symmetry feels comforting. It suggests fairness, balance, and order. When we see a reflection align perfectly, the mind relaxes, sensing that nothing is out of place. In the early universe, symmetry was everywhere. Laws applied evenly. Particles and antiparticles emerged in matching pairs. Reality appeared almost flawless, like a mirror reflecting itself without distortion. And yet, perfect symmetry does not last. It rarely does. In physics, symmetry breaking is not a failure. It is a transition, a gentle departure from exact balance that allows new patterns to form. When a mirror breaks slightly, it does not destroy the image, it multiplies it. Variation enters, structure becomes possible. Antimatter sits quietly at the heart of this idea. The universe began symmetrical, but it did not remain so. Somewhere in its early cooling, symmetry softened. Tiny differences emerged. These differences did not erase the rules, they enriched them. From that moment onward, the universe was no longer a single reflection. It became a landscape. You can sense this pattern in everyday life. A perfectly still surface reflects nothing but itself. Add a ripple, and light begins to dance. Music needs variation to exist. A heartbeat needs irregularity to stay alive. The universe, too, needed its mirrors to tilt just slightly. Broken symmetry does not mean chaos. It means preference. It means one outcome becomes a little more likely than another. Over time, those preferences accumulate, shaping everything that follows. Matter gathers instead of vanishing. Time flows instead of standing still. Complexity emerges where uniformity once ruled. As you rest, notice how your own body reflects this gentle imbalance. No breath is exactly like the last. No thought repeats perfectly, and yet there is coherence. There is rhythm. Broken symmetry allows comfort to exist without rigidity. Physicists study these asymmetries carefully, not to fix them, but to understand them. Each small deviation tells a story about the universe's earliest moments, about the quiet decisions that shaped reality long before stars existed. Antimatter helps illuminate these stories, acting as a guidepost for where balance once was and where it gently shifted. Let this idea settle without effort. The universe did not lose something when symmetry broke. It gained possibility. In the next part of our journey, we will listen more closely to these asymmetries, treating them not as errors, but as subtle messages written into the structure of everything. For now, rest in the understanding that perfection was never the goal. Flow was. The universe speaks most clearly through what is almost, but not quite, the same. Its messages not written in perfect repetition, but in slight differences that repeat again and again. Asymmetry is not noise in this language. It is the signal. Antimatter helps us hear it, reminding us that reality is shaped by preferences too small to feel, yet large enough to matter. Physicists listen for these differences with extraordinary care. They observe how particles decay, how often one outcome appears compared to its mirror. They do not look for drama. They look for patience, a tiny excess here, a subtle delay there. Over time, these small imbalances reveal the universe's habits, the way it leans without ever tipping too far. There is something calming about this method of listening. Science, at its best, is quiet. It waits. It allows patterns to emerge naturally. Antimatter experiments often run for years, collecting data slowly, like rainfall filling a basin. No single event carries the truth. Understanding arrives through accumulation. As you lie here, breathing gently, you may notice how your own awareness works the same way. You do not fall asleep all at once. You drift. Thoughts become less sharp. Sensations soften. The mind does not switch off. It fades, guided by subtle changes rather than sudden stops. The universe, too, faded from perfect symmetry into variety. That fading was not a loss, it was an opening. It allowed structure, memory, and direction to appear. Without asymmetry, there would be nothing to distinguish before from after, here from there, this from that. Antimatter teaches us to value these distinctions without tension. Difference does not mean conflict, it means texture. The universe is textured, layered, full of gentle contrasts that give it depth. Light against dark, presence against absence, matter against its mirror. There is a quiet, human comfort here. You do not need to be perfectly balanced to be whole, neither does the universe. Variation is not a flaw. It is a feature that allows experience to exist at all. In the next part of our journey, we will bring antimatter into the present moment, exploring where it appears in today's universe and how it continues to reveal itself softly and briefly even now. For the moment, let your thoughts settle into the rhythm of listening, knowing that understanding often comes not from forcing answers, but from allowing patterns to reveal themselves in time. Although the early universe was rich with antimatter, today it is rare and fleeting. It does not gather into clouds or linger in space the way matter does. Instead, antimatter appears briefly, quietly, and then is gone. It arrives as a visitor, not a resident, leaving behind only light and a trace of information. High above the Earth, cosmic rays stream through space. These energetic particles come from distant stars, exploding supernovae and the restless centers of galaxies. When they collide with atoms in the upper atmosphere, tiny sparks of antimatter are born. Positrons appear for a moment, meet electrons, and dissolve into light before ever reaching the ground. The process is constant, gentle, and mostly unnoticed. Antimatter also emerges near extreme environments. Around black holes, where gravity bends space deeply, energetic interactions can create brief particle pairs. In these regions, matter and energy exchange forms easily, and antimatter flickers into existence like a reflection on moving water. It does not stay. It participates, then fades. On Earth, antimatter is created deliberately in laboratories. Particle accelerators guide beams of energy along circular paths, allowing collisions to produce antiparticles under controlled conditions. These particles are captured carefully, held in place by magnetic fields, never touching ordinary matter. Even here, antimatter remains delicate. A single contact would end its brief stay. There is something humbling about this. The universe allows antimatter to exist, but only briefly, only under the right conditions. It is not hidden because it is dangerous. It is rare because the universe moved on. The early balance passed, leaving matter to shape the long future. As you rest, notice how this mirrors certain moments in your own experience. Some thoughts appear only once, some feelings pass quickly. Not everything is meant to last. Transience does not reduce meaning. It gives it shape. Antimatter's quiet presence today reminds us that the past never fully disappears. Traces of the universe's earliest moments still drift through space, brushing against the present without interrupting it. The cosmos remembers, softly. In the next part of our journey, we will look more closely at how scientists gently capture these fleeting particles, holding them briefly in stillness, and what that patience teaches us about care and attention. For now, let the idea of antimatter as a passing visitor settle into calm, knowing that even the rarest things belong to the same gentle flow. To study antimatter, scientists must approach it with extraordinary gentleness. Antimatter cannot be held in ordinary containers. It cannot touch walls or rest on surfaces. The moment it meets matter, it vanishes into light. So instead of grasping it, researchers create spaces of absence, using magnetic fields to suspend antimatter without contact, like morning dew hovering on a spider's thread. These traps are quiet and precise. Magnetic lines curve softly through empty chambers, forming invisible bowls where antiparticles can drift. Inside, antimatter floats in stillness, isolated from everything else. Even vibrations, stray particles, or slight temperature changes can end the experiment. Success depends not on force, but on patience. There is something meditative about this work. Scientists wait, they watch, they adjust slowly. Antimatter teaches restraint. It cannot be rushed, it cannot be controlled aggressively. It responds only to careful balance and steady attention. In this way, the process of studying antimatter mirrors the calm it invites. When antimatter is held successfully, even for a short time, it reveals its properties quietly. Its mass, its charge, its behavior in gravity. Each observation adds a small piece to the universe's larger story. No single experiment answers everything. Understanding arrives through accumulation, through repetition, through waiting. As you lie here, notice how similar this feels to drifting towards sleep. You cannot force yourself to sleep. Effort pushes it away. Sleep arrives only when conditions are right, When attention softens and resistance fades, antimatter and rest follow the same principle. They appear in openness, not pressure. These experiments also remind us of care. Antimatter is not dangerous because it is powerful. It is fragile because it is rare. To hold it is to acknowledge limits, to respect the boundaries of nature. There is humility in this. Science becomes an act of listening rather than commanding. In the next part of our journey, we will step inside the environments where these experiments take place, transforming the image of particle accelerators from loud machines into calm, humming spaces where attention and stillness guide discovery. For now, rest in the image of antimatter floating gently, held not by walls, but by balance. Particle accelerators are often imagined as violent places roaring with energy and speed. In reality, inside these machines there is a surprising stillness. Long tunnels stretch quietly beneath the ground. Magnetic fields guide particles along smooth paths with extraordinary precision. Everything hums softly, controlled, measured, patient. It is not chaos, it is choreography. Within these circular paths, particles move again and again, gaining energy slowly, like a breath deepening over time. They do not rush, they are guided. When collisions finally occur, they are brief and exact. Moments of contact followed by silence. Out of these encounters, matter and antimatter may appear for an instant, revealing themselves before dissolving back into light. What makes this process calming to imagine is its restraint. Enormous energy is involved, yet it is never released carelessly. Every parameter is adjusted with intention. Every observation is planned. The accelerator becomes less a machine of force and more a space of listening, where nature is invited to reveal its patterns under carefully prepared conditions. As you rest, picture this environment not as loud or bright, but dim and focused. Sensors wait, data flows quietly. The human presence is gentle, almost absent. Scientists trust the system and step back, allowing events to unfold without interference. This distance is important. It creates room for clarity. Antimatter appears here not as a spectacle, but as a whisper, a signal in the data, a brief alignment in the detectors. Its presence confirms ideas that began long ago in equations and symmetry. It does not announce itself. It simply behaves, following the same rules it always has. There is a lesson here that reaches beyond physics. Understanding does not always come from intensity. Often, it comes from stillness, from creating conditions where truth can surface on its own. Particle accelerators remind us that even the fastest things in the universe can be guided calmly. You may notice how this resonates with your own state right now. Your body is slowing, yet awareness remains. Thoughts pass, but you do not chase them. This balance between motion and rest is where insight often appears, quietly and without effort. Inside these machines, humanity touches the universe's smallest scales, not by overpowering them, but by aligning with their rhythms. Antimatter teaches that control is not the same as understanding. Presence matters more than pressure. In the next part of our journey, we will bring this knowledge closer to home, exploring how antimatter, despite its rarity, plays a gentle role in medicine, quietly helping human bodies heal. For now, let the image of those calm underground rings drift through your mind, steady and patient, carrying particles and thoughts alike toward rest. Antimatter is often associated with distant laboratories and cosmic questions, yet one of its most meaningful roles unfolds quietly within hospitals. Here, antimatter becomes gentle and practical, serving the human body without spectacle. It arrives not as a mystery, but as a tool for seeing more clearly. In medical imaging, a technique called positron emission tomography, or PET, uses tiny amounts of antimatter to reveal what the body is doing beneath the surface. A patient is given a carefully prepared substance that emits positrons, the antimatter partners of electrons. These positrons travel only a very short distance before meeting electrons within the body. When they meet, both disappear, releasing light in opposite directions. This light is not harmful, it is measured. Detectors surrounding the body listen for these paired flashes, mapping where they originate. From this quiet exchange, detailed images emerge, showing patterns of activity inside organs and tissues. Doctors can see how energy flows, where cells are active, where something has changed. Antimatter, here, becomes a language the body speaks softly. There is something deeply comforting about this use. The most elusive substance in the universe is trusted to help care for life. Antimatter does not disrupt the body. It visits briefly, offers information, and leaves. Nothing remains except understanding. It is a perfect example of precision without intrusion. As you rest, imagine this process unfolding with calm efficiency. Light appears for a moment, then fades. Information travels. Decisions become clearer. Healing begins not through force, but through awareness. This mirrors the broader rhythm of the universe, where light often carries the most important messages. Antimatter's role in medicine also reminds us that knowledge flows outward from curiosity. Questions about symmetry and balance asked decades ago now help people every day. The universe's hidden stories do not stay hidden forever. They find gentle ways to serve. You might notice how this feels reassuring rather than dramatic. Science does not always change lives through grand inventions. Sometimes it helps simply by seeing more clearly, by listening to what is already happening. Antimatter, once feared as dangerous or unstable, becomes a quiet partner in care. As your breathing deepens, let this connection settle. The same universe that shaped galaxies also shaped tools for healing. Nothing is separate. Everything participates in the same flow of energy and transformation. In the next part of our journey, we will stay with this human connection, reflecting on how antimatter's brief interactions remind us of care, patience, and the value of gentle observation. For now, rest in the thought that even the universe's strangest substances can be woven into kindness, serving life without ever raising their voice. When antimatter is used in medicine, it does not announce itself. It works quietly, behind the scenes, supporting understanding rather than demanding attention. In a PET scan, antimatter does not heal directly. It illuminates. And sometimes, seeing clearly is the first and most important step toward healing. Inside the body, countless processes unfold at once. Cells communicate. Energy moves. Subtle changes occur long before symptoms appear. Antimatter allows doctors to notice these changes early, gently, without intrusion. The positrons release travel only a short distance, just enough to meet electrons nearby. Their meeting becomes light, and that light becomes information. Nothing more is taken. Nothing is forced. There is a calm efficiency to this exchange. Antimatter enters, interacts briefly, and leaves. It does not linger. It does not overwhelm. It participates, then steps aside. This is a beautiful example of cooperation between human curiosity and the universe's deeper rules. The same laws that governed the early cosmos now help guide care in quiet rooms filled with soft machines and waiting chairs. As you listen, imagine the reassurance this brings. A doctor looking at a clear image, a patient gaining understanding, a decision made with confidence rather than guesswork. Antimatter's role here is not dramatic, it is supportive. It helps reduce uncertainty, and in doing so, it brings calm. This use of antimatter also reminds us that knowledge often travels unexpected paths. Ideas born from abstract questions about symmetry and balance now serve practical compassion. Curiosity becomes care. Theory becomes comfort. The universe's hidden patterns find their way into human hands, not as power, but as insight. You may notice how this resonates with your own experience tonight. You're not listening to fix anything. You're listening to understand, to soften, to allow rest to arrive naturally. Healing, like sleep, cannot be commanded. It appears when the environment is gentle and attention is kind. Antimatter teaches this lesson repeatedly. Its power lies not in force, but in precision, in knowing when to appear and when to vanish, in respecting boundaries. The universe seems to favour this approach, using light touches rather than heavy ones, subtle signals rather than loud declarations. As your awareness continues to slow, let this idea settle into your body. Healing does not always feel like action. Sometimes it feels like clarity. Sometimes it feels like rest. Sometimes it begins simply by seeing what is already there. In the next part of our journey, we will step back from technology and reflect on science itself as an act of listening, shaped by patience, humility, and quiet attention. For now, rest in the comfort that even the most mysterious parts of the universe can participate gently in care, supporting life without ever needing to rush. At its quietest, science is not about control. It is about listening. Long before conclusions are reached, before instruments are trusted, before theories are named, there is attention. Someone watches. Someone waits. Someone notices a pattern repeating softly, asking to be understood rather than used. Antimatter has always belonged to this quieter side of science. From its first appearance in equations to its brief traces in detectors, antimatter never demanded urgency. It revealed itself only when conditions were right, when experiments were careful, when expectations were loose enough to allow surprise. This patience is not a limitation. It is a strength. The universe does not reward haste. It responds to steadiness. Listening in science means allowing uncertainty to exist without anxiety. Antimatter has never fit neatly into simple stories. It raises questions about balance, time, and existence itself, and many of those questions remain open. Yet this openness does not weaken understanding. It deepens it. It creates space for refinement, for humility, for wonder. As you rest, notice how different this feels from everyday urgency. There is nothing here to complete, nothing to solve before morning. Just as scientists sit with unanswered questions, you are allowed to sit with unfinished thoughts. They do not need closure to be peaceful. They can simply fade like distant sounds at night. Antimatter research moves forward in small steps. Experiments are repeated. Results are checked again and again. Listening is ongoing. This rhythm mirrors the universe itself, which unfolds gradually without announcements. Stars take millions of years to form. Galaxies drift for billions. Understanding, too, grows slowly. There is something deeply human in this process. To listen carefully is to respect what you do not yet know. It is to acknowledge that reality is not obligated to be simple or immediate. Antimatter teaches that the universe offers its secrets not to those who demand them, but to those who wait with curiosity and care. You may feel this patience settling into your body now. The need to follow every idea relaxes. Awareness becomes softer, more spacious. This is the same state that supports both sleep and insight. Attention without tension. Presence without pressure. Science, at its best, shares this quality with meditation. Both begin by noticing what is already happening. Both deepen through repetition. Both accept that clarity arrives gradually, often when effort recedes. Antimatter stands as a quiet symbol of this approach, reminding us that some truths can only be heard when the mind becomes still. In the next part of our journey, we will allow imagination to drift gently outward, wondering whether antimatter might ever gather into larger structures and what that possibility says about the universe's openness to many forms of existence. For now, rest in the calm understanding that listening itself is a form of knowledge and that the universe speaks most clearly when we give it time. Sometimes the mind drifts beyond what is known and wonders gently about what could be. If matter can gather into stars and galaxies, could antimatter do the same somewhere far away, beyond our sight? The question is not asked with urgency. It is asked the way one wonders about distant shores, calm and unhurried, knowing that imagination itself can be a peaceful place to rest. In theory, antimatter follows the same laws as matter. Its particles attract and repel in familiar ways. Its gravity behaves the same. If a region of the universe were made entirely of antimatter, it could form atoms, clouds, stars, and perhaps even planets. From within such a place, everything would feel ordinary. Light would shine, time would pass, structure would emerge. Only when matter and antimatter met would their difference become visible. So why don't we see antimatter worlds? This question returns us to the universe's earliest imbalance. Matter gained the slightest advantage and spread, filling space. Antimatter, left without large regions of its own, faded into rarity. If antimatter galaxies existed nearby, their boundaries would glow where matter and antimatter met, releasing light that telescopes would notice. The sky remains quiet. So far, it tells a consistent story, and yet, the universe is vast, larger than intuition, larger than certainty. It holds distances where our instruments cannot yet listen clearly. Wonder remains loud. The idea of antimatter worlds does not threaten understanding. It enriches it, reminding us that knowledge is never complete, only expanding. As you rest, notice how gentle this speculation feels. There is no need to resolve it tonight. The universe does not require us to map every corner before sleep arrives. Some ideas are meant to drift at the edges of thought, soft and open like stars just beyond the horizon. This kind of wondering is different from seeking answers. It is closer to appreciation, to allow for possibilities without needing to grasp them. Antimatter invites this attitude naturally. It exists at the boundary between what is seen and what is inferred, between certainty and curiosity. You might feel how this mirrors your own inner landscape. Not every thought needs completion. Not every question needs an answer before rest. The mind can be spacious, allowing ideas to pass like clouds, leaving no mark behind. Whether or not antimatter worlds exist, their imagined presence adds depth to the universe's story. It reminds us that reality is generous. It allows many forms, many paths, many outcomes, even if only one becomes familiar. This generosity is calming. It means there is room for difference without conflict, for mystery without tension. In the next part of our journey, we will return to what is missing rather than what might be, listening to the silence where antimatter should be, and reflecting on what absence itself can teach us. For now, let your thoughts drift outward, knowing that the universe is wide enough to hold both what is known and what is quietly imagined. When scientists look out into the universe, they are not only listening for what is present, they are also listening for what is missing. Antimatter, once abundant, should have left larger traces behind. If vast regions of antimatter still existed nearby, the universe would glow softly at their borders, where matter and antimatter met and released light. Yet the sky remains mostly silent. This absence is not empty, it is informative. Silence, in science, is a kind of data. It tells us that something has changed, that a process completed long ago and did not repeat. The quiet where antimatter should be suggests that the early imbalance was not local or temporary. It shaped the entire observable universe. Matter did not merely survive in one place, it became the dominant presence everywhere we can see. There is something calming about this conclusion. The universe is consistent, it does not contradict itself across vast distances. The same gentle preference that allowed matter to remain here also applied far away, across billions of light years. Reality flows with continuity, not fragmentation. As you rest, notice how absence works in your own experience. Silence between sounds gives music its shape. Pauses between breaths allow calm to deepen. Night itself is not an interruption of day, but a necessary space where rest can arrive. Absence does not mean loss, it means completion. Antimatter's silence also protects the universe's quiet stability. If large regions of antimatter remained nearby, space would be restless, filled with constant annihilation and light. Instead, the cosmos is mostly calm, allowing stars to burn steadily and galaxies to drift without disruption. Peace, on the larger scales, depends on what is no longer there. This perspective softens the idea of mystery. Not everything that matters needs to be visible. Some truths reveal themselves through stillness rather than presence. Antimatter, though rare today, left its mark by shaping what could remain. Its absence is part of the universe's balance, not a flaw in it. As your awareness slows further, allow yourself to be comfortable with this quiet. You do not need constant stimulation to feel connected. The universe itself rests between events, holding long stretches of calm that make movement meaningful when it occurs. In the next part of our journey, we will sit gently with unanswered questions, exploring how science allows uncertainty to remain without anxiety, and how that openness mirrors the state of rest you are drifting into now. For the moment, let the silence where antimatter once was become part of your own stillness, spacious and untroubled. Not every question needs to hurry toward an answer. Some are meant to remain open, like windows left slightly ajar to let night air move through. Antimatter has given science many such questions. Why did matter gain its slight advantage? Why did symmetry soften rather than hold? These are not failures of understanding. They are invitations to patience. In a world that often values speed, this kind of uncertainty can feel uncomfortable. Yet the universe itself does not seem bothered by unanswered questions. It unfolds calmly, regardless of how much we know about it. Stars do not wait for explanations to shine. Galaxies do not pause until their origins are fully mapped. Reality continues, steady and untroubled. As you lie here, you may feel this rhythm aligning with your own. There is no need to resolve every thought before sleep. The mind can rest even when stories are unfinished. In fact, rest often arrives more easily when we stop demanding closure. Antimatter research reflects this attitude beautifully. Experiments are designed carefully, results are interpreted slowly, and conclusions are held lightly. Scientists accept that some answers may take generations to unfold. This long view removes urgency and replaces it with trust. Trust that understanding will deepen in its own time. There is comfort in knowing that the universe does not rush itself. The same calm that governs particle interactions also shapes cosmic evolution. Nothing forces the next moment. It arrives when conditions allow. Sleep follows the same rule. You cannot schedule it precisely. You can only prepare the space and let it come. Questions, then, are not obstacles to peace. They can be companions. They walk beside us without demanding attention. Antimatter's unanswered aspects remind us that curiosity does not have to disturb rest. Wonder can be soft. You might notice thoughts rising now and then, curious, half-formed, drifting through awareness. There is no need to chase them. Let them pass like dim stars behind thin clouds. Understanding does not disappear when attention fades. It simply pauses, waiting quietly. In the next part of our journey, we will turn inward again, reflecting on antimatter and the deeper meaning of existence itself, asking why something remains rather than nothing at all. For now, rest in the gentle acceptance that not knowing is not a problem to solve, but a state to inhabit calmly, especially as sleep draws closer. At the heart of antimatter's story lies one of the quietest questions the universe asks. Why is there something rather than nothing? It is not a question meant to be solved quickly, or perhaps ever fully answered. It rests beneath all others, steady and patient, like a deep current beneath the surface of the sea. Antimatter brings this question into focus gently. In the earliest moments, existence was almost erased. Matter and antimatter were so close to perfect balance that the universe nearly returned entirely to light. Nothing solid, nothing lasting, and yet something remained. A small difference, barely noticeable, allowed reality to continue. The universe did not insist on being, it simply did not disappear. There is something deeply calming in this perspective. Existence was not guaranteed, it was permitted. The universe leaned slightly toward presence, and that was enough. From that permission came everything that followed. Stars forming slowly, worlds cooling, life becoming aware of itself, and eventually this moment where you listen and breathe without effort. Antimatter reminds us that meaning does not require certainty. The universe did not need a reason to allow matter to remain. It followed its rules, and those rules left room. Meaning then is not imposed from outside. It emerges from what is allowed to continue. As you rest, notice how this mirrors your own experience. You do not need a grand purpose to be here tonight. You are present because you are. Breath follows breath. Awareness drifts and settles. Existence unfolds without explanation, and somehow that is enough. The near cancellation of the universe gives presence a softness. Nothing here is loud or absolute. Everything exists by margin and balance. This makes reality feel less rigid, more forgiving. There is room for pause, room for rest, room for imperfection. Antimatter does not threaten existence. It frames it. By showing how easily everything could have vanished, it highlights how gentle it is that anything remains at all. The universe is not shouting its presence, it is whispering it moment by moment. As your thoughts slow, allow this idea to settle without analysis. You do not need to decide what existence means. You can simply experience it. The universe has been doing that for billions of years, unfolding quietly without asking itself why. In the next part of our journey, we will begin to expand outward again, returning to wonder, light, and the deeper philosophical echoes that antimatter leaves behind. For now, rest in the simple fact of being here, not as a problem to solve, but as a calm continuation of a story that almost ended before it began. When matter and antimatter meet, the universe does not argue, it resolves. What emerges is light, clean and unburdened, moving outward at the maximum pace allowed. This light is not decoration. It is the simplest outcome, the universe's way of completing a sentence without excess. Opposites do not cancel into nothing. They open into clarity. Light carries no mass. It does not cling. It travels freely, crossing space without tiring, without aging. In this way, light feels like permission itself, the form reality takes when it releases weight. Antimatter teaches us that resolution does not require force. It requires alignment. When alignment occurs, motion becomes effortless. As you rest, consider how often light marks gentle transitions. Dawn does not argue with night. It arrives softly. Evening does not erase the day. It dims it. In physics, too, endings glow briefly before settling into stillness. Light is not an alarm. It is a signal that change has completed its work. In the early universe, light was everywhere. Matter and antimatter met repeatedly, and space filled with brightness that slowly stretched and cooled as the cosmos expanded. Some of that light still surrounds you now, thinned by time. Faint and even, part of the quiet background that fills the night sky. It is ancient, patient, and still moving. There is comfort in knowing that light remembers without clinging. It carries information, but not attachment. It tells us what happened without demanding response. Antimatter's gift, then, is not danger, but illumination. It shows that when differences resolve, What remains can be shared widely and gently. You may notice how this mirrors your inner experience as sleep approaches. Thoughts that once felt heavy begin to lose their weight. Concerns soften into awareness. What remains is a dim, even glow of presence, not effort, not focus, just being. Light behaves the same way when it is allowed to travel without resistance. This perspective changes how endings feel. They are not failures, they are translations. Something becomes simpler, more open, more widely distributed. Antimatter teaches that release can be generous. It can brighten rather than diminish. As your breathing steadies, let the image of light spreading quietly fill your awareness. No destination, no urgency, just motion that doesn't ask for permission. In the next part of our journey, we will reflect on how the universe remembers these moments and how memory itself can exist without weight, carried forward by light and time together. For now, rest in the gentle understanding that even the universe's deepest oppositions resolve into something soft enough to share with everything. The universe does not keep memories the way we do. It does not store moments as stories or images. Instead, it remembers through patterns that persist, through light that keeps travelling, through ratios that remain steady, through balances that once shifted and never fully returned to where they began. Antimatter is woven into this kind of memory, quiet and precise. When matter gained its slight advantage, the universe did not forget the symmetry that came before. The laws that created antimatter still exist. The equations remain balanced. The mirror is still there, even if one side now dominates. Memory in this sense is not nostalgia, it is structure. It is the way reality continues to behave because of what once was. As you rest, you may feel how memory softens at night. Details blur, sharp edges fade. What remains is not information, but atmosphere, a feeling of continuity without effort. The universe remembers in much the same way. It does not replay events, it carries their influence forward, quietly shaping what comes next. Light is one of the universe's most faithful memories. Photons released billions of years ago still move through space, carrying traces of ancient interactions. Some were born when matter and antimatter met, releasing their stored energy into motion. Those moments are long past, yet their light still travels, unhurried, present without awareness. There is something deeply calming about this form of memory. Nothing is held tightly, nothing is clung to. Events complete themselves and then flow outward, becoming part of the background that supports everything else. Antimatter's story remains not as drama, but as context. It shaped the universe, then stepped back. You may notice how this echoes the way experiences shape you. Moments pass, feelings resolve. What remains is not the event itself, but the way it gently alters your direction. You're not required to remember everything to be shaped by it. The universe works the same way. Antimatter reminds us that balance does not need to be restored to be honoured. Once the universe leaned toward matter, it did not need to correct itself. It continued, carrying the memory of symmetry forward as potential rather than regret. This is not loss, it is evolution. As your awareness grows quieter, allow your own memories to loosen their grip. You do not need to review the day. You do not need to organise your thoughts. What matters has already shaped you. The rest can fade. In the next part of our journey, we will explore the stillness at the edge of knowledge, where questions become spacious and understanding rests without pressure. For now, let the universe's way of remembering guide you into deeper calm, knowing that nothing essential is ever truly lost. There comes a place in every exploration where movement slows and attention widens. Beyond this point, adding more detail does not bring clarity. It brings noise. Science recognizes this edge quietly. It is the place where measurements approach their limits and questions become spacious rather than sharp. Antimatter leads us here, not with confusion, but with calm. At this edge, knowledge does not end. It rests. The universe has shown what it can within our reach, and beyond that reach it remains generous without explanation. This is not a failure of inquiry. It is a natural pause, like the horizon meeting the sea. You can see far, but not forever, and that distance is part of the beauty. As you lie here, notice how your own thinking has edges too. There is a point where effort stops helping. Thoughts become lighter, less insistent. Awareness opens without focusing on any single thing. This is not emptiness. It is stillness with depth. Antimatter's unanswered questions live comfortably in this space. Physicists stand at this edge often. They refine experiments, improve instruments, and then wait. Waiting is not passive here. It is attentive. It allows unexpected patterns to surface. Antimatter experiments in particular ask for this patience. They reveal small truths slowly, requiring calm persistence rather than force. There is something reassuring about knowing that even the universe allows itself to be partially unknown. Reality does not rush to explain itself. It unfolds, revealing what it can, then holding the rest quietly. This restraint creates trust. The cosmos is not hiding out of fear, it is resting in completeness. You may feel this trust settling into your body now. The need to understand every detail fades. Curiosity remains, but it softens, becoming more like appreciation. This is a gentle shift, one that often precedes sleep. The mind does not shut down, it widens, then relaxes. At the edge of knowledge, questions change shape. They stop pointing forward and begin to circle. They become atmospheres rather than tasks. Antimatter's deepest mysteries live here, not demanding resolution, but offering perspective. They remind us that certainty is not required for peace. The universe seems comfortable with this. It carries vast unknowns without tension. Dark matter, dark energy, the origin of imbalance itself. These are not holes in reality. They are open spaces allowing motion and growth to continue. As your breathing deepens, let yourself rest at this edge too. You do not need to cross it tonight. You can sit beside it, feeling the quiet that comes when effort loosens. In the next part of our journey, we will turn toward the human impulse that brings us here at all, reflecting on curiosity itself as a gentle force, not a restless one. For now, remain in this stillness, knowing that understanding does not disappear when attention fades. It simply waits, patiently, as you drift closer to rest. Human curiosity does not always arrive as excitement. Often it appears quietly, as a gentle pull towards something not yet understood. Antimatter has always lived in this quieter form of curiosity. It did not demand attention with spectacle. It invited patience, asking questions that unfolded slowly over decades, sometimes over generations. From the beginning, curiosity about antimatter was never about control. It was about listening carefully to the universe's symmetry and noticing where it softened. Scientists followed this pull not because it promised quick answers, but because it felt true. The universe had revealed a mirror, and curiosity simply wanted to understand why it was there. As you rest, notice how natural this kind of curiosity feels. It does not tense the body, it does not hurry the mind. It allows wonder to exist without expectation. This is the same curiosity you may have felt as a child, lying awake and thinking about the stars, not to solve them, but to feel their presence. Antimatter reminds us that curiosity does not need to lead anywhere in particular. Its value lies in the act itself. To wonder is to participate in the universe's unfolding, even without conclusions. The questions we ask shape how gently we move through reality, not just what we eventually learn. There is a soft humility in this approach. Humans did not invent antimatter, they noticed it. They adjusted their understanding to include it. Curiosity here was adaptive, not dominant. It allowed reality to remain larger than explanation, which is perhaps why this story feels so calm. You may feel this humility settling in as your thoughts slow. There is relief in not needing to master what you observe. Simply being present with mystery is enough. Curiosity becomes companionship rather than pursuit. The universe seems to encourage this tone. It reveals itself gradually, rewarding patience over intensity. Antimatter is a perfect example. It shows that the most profound truths are often hidden not because they are complex, but because they are subtle. As sleep draws nearer, let curiosity soften into appreciation. You do not need to chase questions tonight. You can let them drift, knowing they will still be there tomorrow, unchanged by rest. In the next part of our journey, we will turn toward the beauty of invisible things, celebrating how much of reality shapes us without ever demanding our attention. For now, rest in the gentle presence of curiosity itself, calm and unhurried. Much of what shapes the universe cannot be seen. Gravity has no colour. Time leaves no shadow. Antimatter rarely shows itself at all. And yet, these invisible things guide everything, quietly and consistently without asking for recognition. The universe seems comfortable working in this way, allowing its most important forces to remain unseen. Antimatter belongs to this hidden beauty. It does not decorate the night sky. It does not form familiar shapes. It influences the universe mostly through absence, through what did not remain after the earliest moments passed. Its role was brief, but essential. Like a foundation buried beneath a building, it supports everything without ever appearing on the surface. As you rest, notice how much of your own experience works the same way. Breath moves whether you notice it or not. Thoughts arise before you choose them. Emotions shift quietly beneath awareness. You are shaped by processes you do not supervise. Life flows without constant observation. There is comfort in this. It means you do not have to hold everything together. The universe does not require attention to function. It continues gently, guided by rules that do not need to be watched. Antimatter reminds us that influence does not require visibility. What matters most often works in silence. This perspective softens the idea of importance. Not everything meaningful announces itself. Some things serve best by remaining subtle. Antimatter did not need to dominate the cosmos to shape it. It needed only to exist briefly, to balance matter closely enough that a difference could emerge. You may feel this lesson settling into your body as the mind loosens. There is no need to be loud to be real. No need to be obvious to matter. Presence can be quiet. Impact can be gentle. The universe seems to prefer this approach, building complexity from small, nearly invisible shifts. Invisible beauty invites trust. When you cannot see every mechanism, you learn to relax into the process. Sleep itself requires this trust. You cannot observe the moment you fall asleep. It happens beyond awareness. Trying to watch it only keeps you awake. Letting go allows it to arrive. Antimatter's story encourages the same release. You do not need to see everything to be held by it. The universe is full of structures that support you without display. Light travels through space unseen. Gravity holds you gently to the earth. Balance exists whether you name it or not. As your breathing deepens, allow appreciation to replace effort. The invisible is not empty. It is active, patient, and sufficient. In the next part of our journey, we will let breath itself become our guide, syncing the rhythm of the body with the larger flow of the cosmos. For now, rest in the quiet beauty of what does not need to be seen to be felt. Breath is one of the few rhythms that belongs both to you and to the universe. It moves inward and outward without instruction, following patterns older than thought. When you breathe, you participate in a cycle that mirrors expansion and release, gathering and letting go. Antimatter's story echoes this rhythm not in lungs, but in lightened energy. In the earliest moments, the universe breathed quickly. Matter and antimatter appeared and vanished in rapid cycles, forming and dissolving like waves overlapping. Expansion followed contraction. Energy condensed, then spread again. Over time, this breathing slowed. Space widened. Encounters became less frequent. The universe settled into a longer, calmer rhythm. As you lie here now, your own breathing may be slowing in the same way. Each inhale arrives gently. Each exhale releases without effort. There is no need to control it. Breath knows how to find its own pace. The cosmos does too. Nothing forces these rhythms. They arise naturally from balance. Antimatter reminds us that breathing is not about holding. It is about exchange. In physics, particles meet, transform, and move on. In the body, air enters, gives what it can and leaves. Both processes are quiet acts of cooperation. They keep systems open rather than fixed. You might notice how thoughts now follow a similar pattern. They arise briefly, touch awareness, then fade. There is no need to follow them. They will complete themselves. Like particles meeting their opposites, thoughts resolve when attention softens. There is a deep calm in aligning with this rhythm. You're not separate from cosmic processes. You're shaped by the same logic of flow and release. The universe does not ask you to perform. It asks only that you participate by being present. Breathing with the cosmos does not require imagination. It requires permission. Permission to let go of effort. Permission to trust the rhythm already in motion. Antimatter's brief appearances and gentle dissolutions remind us that nothing needs to stay fixed to be meaningful. As your body grows heavier against the surface beneath you, allow breath to become background rather than focus. It will continue without attention, just as the universe continues without observation. This shared rhythm is enough to carry you forward. In the next part of our journey, we will allow ourselves a small human moment, a quiet smile at the strangeness and beauty of reality, before beginning the slow return toward rest. For now, let breath and cosmos move together, unhurried, guiding you deeper into calm. There is a quiet kindness in realizing how strange reality truly is. The universe allows opposites to exist, to meet, and to dissolve into light. It permits imbalance to shape everything, and it does so without ceremony. When you step back from the details, this strangeness no longer feels intimidating. It feels gentle, almost playful, like a puzzle that smiles back at you. Antimatter is one of those ideas that can bring a soft smile, not because it is amusing, but because it reminds us that reality is far richer than appearances suggest. The solid world you move through each day rests on invisible relationships, mirrored particles, and tiny differences that almost never happened. And yet, here they are, quietly supporting every moment. As you rest, you might feel a subtle lightness in this thought. The universe is not rigid or obvious. It is flexible, surprising, and calm. Even its deepest mysteries do not feel hostile. They feel patient, as if waiting for us to notice them without urgency. There is a human comfort in this realization. You do not need to understand everything to belong here. You are part of a reality that has always been a little unfinished, a little uneven, and that is precisely why it works. Antimatter nearly erased everything, and yet it also helped define what could remain. That balance between loss and presence is woven into life itself. You may notice a gentle smile forming not on your face but in your awareness. Quiet acceptance of how little effort it takes to be here. The universe is doing most of the work. Gravity holds you. Breath continues. Time flows. You're allowed to rest inside this system without fixing it or explaining it. This smile is not excitement. It is relief. The kind that arrives when you realize you're not responsible for holding the night sky in place. Reality will continue whether you watch it or not. Your task tonight is simply to rest within it. As your thoughts soften further, allow this lightness to remain. Wonder does not need to be intense to be meaningful. It can be gentle, warm, and reassuring. In the next part of our journey, we will begin to turn back toward the question we asked at the beginning, preparing to close the circle slowly and peacefully. For now, rest with this quiet smile, knowing that the universe is strange, beautiful, and calm enough to hold you as you drift closer to sleep. At the beginning of our journey, we asked a simple question, asked without urgency. Why does the universe carry an opposite within itself? Why does matter have a mirror? And why did that mirror fade while matter remained? Now, as your thoughts grow quieter, the question feels different, softer, less like a puzzle, more like a presence. Antimatter no longer feels distant or dramatic. It feels woven into the background of existence, like a quiet condition that allowed everything else to unfold. The universe did not need to choose between matter and antimatter with intention. It simply allowed one to linger slightly longer. From that small allowance, direction appeared, structure followed, time found its flow. The question, then, is not why the universe has opposites, it is why it allows difference to matter. Balance, we have seen, does not mean equality frozen in place. It means movement, a gentle leaning that creates possibility. Antimatter shows us that reality is not held together by perfection, but by near perfection, by margins that invite continuation. As you rest, notice how this reflection settles in your body. You do not need to be perfectly balanced to feel calm. You only need enough steadiness to continue breathing, enough ease to allow rest. The universe follows the same rule. It does not require exact symmetry to exist beautifully. It requires only enough consistency to flow. Returning to the first question feels like coming home rather than reaching a conclusion. The universe contains opposites because it is alive with relationship, presence and absence, motion and stillness, matter and its mirror. These are not conflicts. They are dialogues, shaping reality quietly over time. You may feel how little effort this understanding requires now. There is no need to hold the idea tightly. It can rest beside you, like a thought that no longer needs words. Sleep welcomes this kind of knowing. It prefers impressions over explanations. In the next part of our journey, we will gently close this reflection by embracing imperfection itself, allowing imbalance to feel not like a flaw, but like a gift that made everything possible. For now, let the first question fade into the background, no longer asking to be answered, only to be felt. The universe does not strive for perfection. If it did, nothing would have remained. Perfect balance would have erased matter entirely, returning everything to smooth light and endless quiet. Instead, the universe allows imbalance to exist gently, and in doing so it creates space for form, memory and experience. Balance here is not a frozen point, it is a living motion. Antimatter teaches this lesson with remarkable clarity. Matter was not meant to win, it was not meant to dominate. It simply remained by the smallest margin, and that was enough. From this near balance came stars, worlds, and the long unfolding of time. Imperfection did not break the universe. It allowed it to continue. As you rest, you may notice how comforting this idea feels. You do not need to be perfectly calm to sleep. You do not need your thoughts to disappear completely. Rest arrives even with small movements of mind, even with gentle imbalance. Like the universe, you only need enough ease to continue. Balance without perfection feels softer. It allows for adjustment, for breathing room, for mistakes that do not undo everything. The cosmos seems to prefer this flexibility, choosing flow over rigidity, motion over stasis. Antimatter almost cancelled existence, and yet that near cancellation became the reason anything could grow. There is a quiet kindness in this structure. Reality does not demand flawlessness. It accommodates variation naturally. No two moments are identical. No two breaths match exactly. And yet, coherence remains. Life continues. You may feel tension leaving your body as this understanding settles. There is no need to align everything precisely tonight. The universe itself does not. It drifts, corrects, leans, and unfolds. That is enough. In the next part of our journey, we will reflect once more on how close reality came to never forming at all, and how that fragility deepens appreciation without adding weight. For now, let balance feel like motion rather than control, and allow yourself to rest inside imperfection, knowing it has always been enough. There is a quiet wonder in realizing how close everything came to never being here, not as a dramatic near miss, but as a gentle possibility that simply did not unfold. Matter and antimatter nearly balanced each other perfectly. The universe stood on the edge of complete cancellation, where light would have spread smoothly and nothing else would have remained. And yet, that edge was not crossed. This near absence does not feel frightening when you sit with it calmly. It feels humbling. Existence was not forced into place. It was allowed to continue by the smallest margin, a difference so slight it almost feels like a breath held for just a moment longer than expected. From that pause, everything followed. As you rest, notice how this perspective softens the weight of being here. Nothing about this moment was guaranteed, and yet it is not fragile in a way that demands fear. It is fragile in a way that invites appreciation. The universe did not promise permanence, it offered continuity moment by moment. The stars above you are not inevitable monuments. They are outcomes of patience. Galaxies are not declarations of power, they are accumulations of quiet persistence. The universe that exists is the one that remained, not because it had to, but because it could. There is comfort in knowing that existence is not an obligation. It is a gift that renews itself continuously. Each moment is a continuation, not a requirement. You're here because the universe has been gently leaning toward presence for billions of years, never tipping too far in either direction. This understanding can bring relief. You do not need to justify your place in the cosmos. You're part of a reality that nearly did not happen at all, and that makes every quiet moment enough. Breathing, listening, resting. These are not small things in a universe that almost returned to silence. As your awareness grows heavier and more relaxed, allow gratitude to arise without effort, not excitement, not joy that needs expression. Just a soft recognition that being here is already more than required. The universe does not ask you to do anything with this gift tonight. In the next part of our journey, we will begin to drift fully toward rest, letting scientific reflection dissolve into simple presence as thoughts loosen and sleep draws closer. For now, remain with this gentle appreciation, knowing that the universe did not rush itself into existence, and it does not rush you either. As the story of antimatter grows quieter, something else begins to take its place. The details loosen, the structure softens. What remains is not information, but atmosphere. Like the hush that follows the end of a conversation, there is space now for rest to arrive naturally. You do not need to hold the ideas we've explored. They can fade gently, leaving only a sense of flow. Matter and antimatter, balance and difference, light and memory. All of these can settle into the background, like stars dimming as clouds pass slowly across the sky. Notice how your body responds when thinking becomes lighter. Muscles release their effort. The jaw softens. The breath deepens without instruction. Sleep does not need to be invited forcefully. It notices when the mind steps aside, when curiosity relaxes into presence. The universe itself follows this pattern. After its most active moments, it cooled. Expansion slowed. Energy spread thinly across space, becoming calm and even. Complexity emerged not through tension, but through patience. Rest is not separate from creation. It is part of the same motion. As you lie here, allow awareness to widen rather than focus. You do not need to follow the voice closely anymore. You can let it drift past you like a familiar sound heard through a wall. Understanding has already done its work. Now it can release. If thoughts appear, let them pass without engagement. They do not need to be answered or completed. Like particles dissolving into light, they resolve on their own when not held. The mind knows how to rest when given permission. You may feel the edges of sleep approaching. Sensations become distant. Time loses its sharpness. This is not something to observe too closely. Sleep arrives best when it is not watched. Trust the process. The same universe that guided particles into balance guides you into rest. In the next part of our journey, we will gently encourage questions themselves to rest, allowing curiosity to set down its tools for the night. For now, drift comfortably in this transition, where awareness softens and effort fades, knowing that nothing more is required of you in this moment. Questions have their own rhythm. They arrive, linger, and eventually grow tired. When they are listened to with care, they soften. They no longer ask to be solved. They ask to be set down. Tonight, you are allowed to let them rest. The questions that carried us here have already done their work. What is antimatter? Why did matter remain? How did balance tilt just enough to allow existence? These thoughts opened space in the mind, widened attention, and then gradually loosened their grip. Now they can become quiet companions rather than active inquirers. Notice how the body responds when questions relax. The forehead smooths, the breath lengthens. Awareness drifts outward, no longer pulled toward explanation. This is not forgetting. It is trust. Trust that understanding does not disappear when effort ends. It simply changes shape. The universe models this beautifully. It does not cling to its early questions. It does not revisit every decision. It unfolds forward, carrying the influence of what came before without needing to revisit it. Antimatter shaped the cosmos and then stepped back. Its role completed itself. The universe did not hold on to it. It moved on. You can do the same. Curiosity does not need to stay awake all night. It can rest without guilt. Tomorrow, or another time, questions can rise again if they need to. Tonight, they are not required. If a thought returns, greet it gently and let it pass. There is no need to follow it to its end. Like a wave that lifts and lowers, it will complete itself without attention. The mind knows how to resolve when it is not being directed. As sleep approaches, time itself becomes less defined. The future loosens, the past softens. What remains is a present moment wide enough to hold you without effort. This is where questions naturally fall silent, not because they are answered, but because they are no longer needed. Antimatter's deepest lesson may be this: existence continues not because everything is understood, but because balance allows motion to proceed. Understanding is part of the flow, not its destination. Rest is not a pause in learning. It is how learning integrates. You might feel a gentle heaviness now, a comfortable pull towards stillness. Let it happen. You do not need to monitor the transition. The universe does not watch itself expand, it simply does. Sleep arrives the same way. In the next part of our journey, we will remain close to this quiet, encouraging awareness to settle fully into presence, where nothing asks for attention and nothing needs to be held. For now, let questions lie down beside you, already asleep, already at peace. There is a moment just before sleep deepens when existence feels especially simple. You're not doing anything. You're not becoming anything. You're simply here. This quiet presence is not something to achieve. It arrives naturally when effort loosens and attention softens. The universe has always offered this gift without condition. After all its early motion, after balance tipped and light spread outward, reality settled into long stretches of calm. Stars burn steadily. Space expands gently. Nothing rushes, nothing demands. Being here is enough. Antimatter's story fades easily into this understanding. It does not need to stay in focus. Its role is complete. It shaped the conditions that allowed presence to exist, and now it rests in the background, like a chapter that does not need rereading to be felt. The universe does not insist on memory. It allows continuity to do the work. As you lie here, notice how little is required of you. Breath continues. The body knows where it is supported. Awareness drifts without needing direction. You do not need to hold on to thoughts to remain real. You do not need to understand anything further to belong in this moment. There is a quiet generosity in this. Existence does not ask for justification. It does not require productivity or clarity. It simply allows itself to be experienced. The same universe that tolerated imbalance and uncertainty also tolerates rest. It welcomes it. You may feel sensations growing distant now. Sounds soften. The sense of the room fades slightly. This is not something to observe too closely. Presence becomes wider when it is not examined. Let yourself be carried by it, the way light travels without effort once it is released. The gift of being here is not dramatic. It does not sparkle. It feels ordinary, and that is why it is calming. You have always known this state. You return to it each night, even if you do not remember the moment of arrival. Sleep carries it forward quietly. Antimatter, balance, light, time. All of these stories lead back to this simple place. The universe exists. You exist within it. Nothing else is required. The rest is detail. As your awareness continues to soften, allow yourself to sink into this quiet gift. There is no next step to prepare for, no thought to complete, no conclusion to reach. Being here is already complete. In the final part of our journey, we will let even this sense of presence dissolve into motion, allowing everything to flow without attention, just as the universe always has. For now, remain gently where you are, resting inside existence itself, untroubled and held. Now even the sense of being here begins to loosen. Presence does not disappear, but it becomes lighter, less defined, like a shoreline seen through mist. Thoughts no longer form complete shapes. Sensations soften at their edges. Awareness drifts without direction, carried by something slower and deeper than intention. This is how the universe often moves when nothing needs to happen. After great changes, it settles into long, quiet motions. Galaxies continue their slow rotation. Light travels on without destination. Time flows without needing to be measured. Nothing pushes forward. Nothing pulls back. Everything simply continues. Antimatter's story has already folded itself into this flow. It no longer stands apart as a subject or idea. It has become atmosphere. A reminder that even the most powerful contrasts eventually dissolve into movement. Matter met its opposite. Light was released, and then the universe kept going, calmly, without commentary. You may notice that listening now requires no effort at all. The words can pass through you without being followed. They do not need to be understood. Like distant waves heard through sleep, they blend into the night, becoming texture rather than meaning. This is not losing awareness. It is widening beyond focus. The mind no longer needs to select or interpret. It can float, supported by rhythms that have always been there. Breath continues. The body remains held. Gravity does its quiet work. You are carried. Night itself feels less like a time and more like a state. A space where definitions soften, where beginnings and endings matter less than continuity. The universe rests here too, not stopping, but moving so gently that motion feels like stillness. If a thought appears, let it drift away on its own. If a sensation shifts, allow it. Nothing requires response. Nothing asks to be named. This is the same ease the universe inhabits between events, where flow replaces effort. As you sink further, it may feel as though you're being drawn inward and outward at the same time. This is natural. Sleep does not move in straight lines. It spreads, like light thinning across space, becoming softer as it goes. We are almost done now, not in a way that signals an ending, but in a way that releases even the idea of journey. There is nowhere left to go, only motion, gentle and continuous, carrying you deeper into rest. Nothing needs to resolve now, not the story, not the questions, not even the sense of self. Everything that could be held has already been set down. What remains is movement without effort, flow without direction. The universe has always existed in this state beneath its events, before matter gathered, before antimatter faded, before light spread and cooled. Flow was already there, steady and untroubled. It did not begin, and it does not end. It carries all forms without holding any of them. You are part of this motion. You always have been. Tonight you do not need to think about it. You can feel it as heaviness in the body, as softness in the breath, as the gentle blurring of awareness. Sleep is simply one way this flow expresses itself. Antimatter's hidden story has done its quiet work. It showed how close everything came to dissolving, and how gently existence continued instead. Not through force, not through certainty, but through balance that leaned just enough to allow motion to go on. That same balance holds you now. Nothing about this moment is sharp. Nothing demands clarity. The universe is not asking you to stay awake and understand it. It is inviting you to rest inside it, the way it rests inside itself. Let go of listening. Let go of following. Let the voice fade into the same background as breath, as silence, as night. You do not need to remember these words. They are not meant to be carried forward. They are meant to dissolve, like light spreading thinly across space. There is no edge here, no final thought to reach, just continuation, just movement that does not announce itself. The universe does not stop when you fall asleep. It keeps flowing patiently the way it always has, and you're free to go with it now, without effort, without awareness, without holding anything at all. Everything flows. Sleep in that motion.